Today's video, we're continuing our alternate future of North America series. And well, yeah. A rebellion breaks out in, you guessed it, in Ohio. And well, Cleveland maybe, a city there, and a city here. Yeah. Those are the cities, right? Cleveland over there, I know for sure. I feel like there's a city there. If I'm wrong, well, yeah. As rebels quickly move to the streets after demanding social reforms, and they don't get it, so they decide to do it by force. Because we're going to the authoritarian leftists, the actual bad leftists. And well, an upper hand is starting to get gained by Ohio on this front. But quickly, isn't Cincinnati there? There's a city there, I think. That must be, maybe. But yeah. As they quickly move up New York's border, and New York starts sending aid in, which leads to a big offensive launched by them. And well, the front continues to move. And eventually, all of this falls. And with it looking like a victory, support from the Western Union spills into those forces. And support from Texas and Florida spews in, yes, they all send support through Virginia. And well, quickly after the front stalls out, he will quickly do one thing, just to mark where the forces hold lands. And well, outside intervention is about to happen. Oh yeah. You may be saying, who's going to do that? Well, it turns out to be them. And well, look at the rebellion. The sides. And then, with revenge all over its mind, the entrance of Detroit. Not Detroit. Why would I call Michigan Detroit? Quickly, these forces move in. This leads to the, well, full-on invasion. They claim it to be, well, liberation. To be helping stop communism. And well, they quickly move in. And well, they don't necessarily attack their forces. They mostly attack the communist forces for now. And well, quickly they occupy lands like up to here, with Detroit occupying the coast. Unideal. Not Detroit, Michigan. Why do I keep calling Michigan Detroit? Am I okay? People are going to think I'm rage baiting if I don't stop. And well, they decide to try to push these forces back. But it turns out to be a big failure, with them completely kicked out of these lands. And then an offensive is made over into these lands. And well, quickly, the communism falls. Not communism, well, yeah. And then Ohio's collapse begins, with a peace treaty being signed at this point, with Michigan deciding to annex more land than they would have, and well, what was suggested to happen. So let's look at how much land. Ohio is taken by Michigan. And well, Michigan goes to Illinois to sign a treaty. And they call it, well, the Detroit Pact. Because, well, yeah, they can't use Chicago. It left Illinois. And quickly after forming it, they speak about a partition of Wisconsin, splitting the land. And so, well, the war of the Wisconsin partition begins, with forces entering two fronts, with the pretense that they were going to support communist rebellions and become communist. Yes, they accuse them of becoming communist. And there's no real evidence. But there's nothing going to happen at this point. Minnesota wishes they had joined. And well, the fall of Wisconsin. Let's see the peace treaty. Well, this becomes a puppet. Now to get the lines to color. Not green, that won't work. Hey, this color blue works well. It looks nice. And for the puppet, we can make it a bit lighter. And well, let's go to California. As California declares war on Cascadia. Cascadia has no chance against this, with hundreds of thousands of troops. 400,000 troops quickly rush in. Well, they move up the coast as the Battle of Portland breaks out with a victory. And then, well, the Battle of Seattle breaks out with a Californian victory. Quickly, they move across into the rural area. And, well, they fall. And with a Californian complete annexation. Yes, annexation. And, well, Florida decides to invade Carolina. So let's go over to the east. With Florida, with the Floridian invasion of Carolina beginning. And well, Florida's rapidly expanding. I guess the orange man in charge, Donald Trump, crazy. Yes, we got it. Crazy person. And well, it doesn't do well. As they tariff them. Yes, they tariff them first. Because Orange Man owns Florida, yeah. As Carolina does a sudden strike on, wherever that is, on a golf course for some reason. Who knows why. And this enrages Orange Man and he quickly runs up the coast. Yes, he ran up the coast. Well, within a few hours after they fall. And while the annexation of, well, Carolina goes well, as Florida decides to invade Alabama. And I could spend all day making jokes, I guess, about Florida going to war with Alabama, but they're just going to go hop through the swamps and take back their lands. And yeah, nobody thinks here. Yep. As they quickly lose Montgomery, their capital. And after that, well, collapse. And then annexation. British Columbia declares war on the Western Union. Well, you may be asking why. Why wouldn't they? Look how much land they can get. And they're invading it for probably oil. Yes, they're invading for oil. And well, quickly they cross the mountains down here. Yeah, they cross the mountains. And they enter into Alberta from part of the Western Union, and they quickly advance through the rural areas in the north. And then they enter invasions as they quickly start advancing towards Edmonton, with forces coming from the north as a spearhead and an encirclement of Edmonton begins. I think I went too far. Much past it, as they continue their advance to take more of the oil areas. And they move and take Calgary. And well, they start struggling as they get pushed back in the spearhead. And quickly, they're kicked out of Calgary. And they're kicked out of Edmonton. And they're almost pushed back to the border. With California deciding to intervene as they don't like the Western Union. This leads to British Columbia advancing in again. In the south, they focus a lot on to move in and undermine it, as they also start to spearhead south of Calgary to make an encirclement and take a lot of the forces. And well, I think they took Saskatoon. And well, in the north, they managed to get all the way to this lake. And they start moving there. As they well advance north, and they manage to start an encirclement. And you may be asking, where is this? Well, Edmonton again. Well, they managed to take Calgary over. And quickly, they advance all the way to here. And well, this is where they have a peace treaty, so let's see how the peace treaty goes. Next, a big chunk of western part of the Western Union, which is mostly Alberta, parts of Saskatchewan, but not all of Alberta. And well, another thing happens. Texas wanting expansion. And well, they declare war on California. And well, you'll have to wait till the next episode to see what happens. Well, thanks for watching today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I'll map her out when until you subscribe. So please subscribe so we get to 3,500 subscribers. Bye, guys!